Hello. Welcome to the Valley Oaks Charter School Mandatory Special Order Meeting. By watching this video series and completing the accompanying paperwork, you will have met the requirements necessary to place a special order for curriculum purchased by VOCS. So let's get started. In addition to getting access to this video, you should have also received several attachments that are the paperwork you will need to help you place your special order. I'm going to walk you through each of those documents. Some I'll go over in depth and others I'll just touch on. I encourage you to grab a pencil and paper so that you can jot down some notes or questions that you may have. Later, you can email those questions to the person who places orders for your school site or to your resource teacher who can then get you the answers to your questions. I'll start by going over the parent guidelines for ordering. You should have gotten this document in your email, and I'm going to review each of the items with you. Number 1. All orders must be submitted through your resource teacher. It is crucial that you communicate with your resource teacher what curriculum you are considering using. They have valuable information and input and may have some suggestions about materials they think might work best for your family and your learner. The deadline to submit orders is June 5th. You will need to verify your resource teacher's last duty day. Many of them are off duty for the summer prior to the June 5th deadline. Since the order must be submitted through them, you may need to have your order ready before June 5th. Having an order submitted through your resource teacher means that they must be the person who is turning in the order to the campus designated person who places the orders for your school site. That means it can't be dropped off at the front desk or left for, say, Mrs. Williams or Mrs. Bryant, or given directly to them. Your resource teacher must be the person turning in the order. Number 2, there will be one comprehensive order per year per family. So when ordering, please understand that you are ordering for the entire school year and that you are placing your order for your family. Many materials have a series of workbooks that are used throughout the school year. For example, Explode the Code has multiple workbooks, or some of the science curricula only covers about 10 to 15 weeks. So in those cases, you will need to make an estimate of how many of those books your child will need to progress through the school year. If you happen to work faster, we'll make a one-time additional purchase in January, only for the books that you're continuing from the first semester, but that you may need more for the remainder of the school year than you initially planned. Number 3. No orders will be accepted from a family until they have attended a mandatory meeting. This video series will suffice for your mandatory meeting for this school year. You also must have all of your books returned and any of the other materials that you checked out from Valley Oaks. There can be exceptions to the return of books, but those special situations need to be discussed with your resource teacher. Number 4. Special order purchases are only for the core subjects of language arts, math, science, and social studies, and you can only order one curriculum per student. For example, we will not order teaching textbooks and Saxon math for the same student. You'll need to choose one program. The exception to this will be language arts. It's perfectly acceptable to order a phonics program, a handwriting program, a grammar program, and a vocabulary program. We will not, however, purchase 2 phonics programs for the same students. You'll have to choose one. We also will only make purchases of items off of the approved lists. The approved lists were attached to this email and are organized by subject. I'm going to pause right now and take a look at each of those lists. This is the approved list for language arts. You'll notice that it's about 6 pages long. That's because we offer the most curriculum in this subject area. You'll also notice that along the side, the approved materials are broken down into smaller content areas like phonics and reading, spelling, vocabulary, handwriting, all-inclusive, grammar, and writing, also online curriculum support, digital support through a couple more programs, and something that's available to all of our families, which is BrainPop. So then across the top, you will see that in addition to the program name, we've given you as much information as we think you might need to help start your research into each of these areas, but the research part is really what you're responsible for. So it's your job to go and visit websites, to look at books, watch videos, talk to other parents, and really do your research about what language arts or math or science program or social studies you think you might want to use. So we'll tell you what grades it's appropriate for, the type of approach that it uses, whether or not it's consumable or has some consumable components, if there's some online support, whether or not it's aligned to the Common Core, and the level of teacher involvement. So some people like something that's pretty open and go, and others like to do a lot of planning. So this might be a clue for you to look at to see how much involvement is needed by the teacher. A brief description of what the teacher's edition is like, and then the components that Valley Oaks will and will not purchase, because some of the programs come with items that we deem either you could provide, or maybe, for instance, if you look at All About Reading, like the school is not going to buy stickers for your student. And then finally, the notes, which are just a brief summary of what the program is like and a little bit of information. Again, this is just intended to be a stepping off point for you as you begin the process of researching which curriculum you think you might want to be using with your learner. So I mentioned earlier that we will only purchase one curriculum per student, and that the exception to that was language arts. So for instance, in order for you to build a comprehensive language arts program, it might be appropriate for you to buy a phonics and reading program, and then maybe a different spelling program, and perhaps a different vocabulary and handwriting program, and then maybe even a grammar program. Or if you're just interested in something to supplement spelling, then you would just purchase whichever of the spelling programs you're interested in. So the language arts is the only approved list where you may be making multiple purchases off the list. So if we look at the math list, you'll see that it's organized in exactly the same format as the language arts. Again, you'll want to research each and every one of these programs that you think you're interested in. And then notice that on the second page, we actually take a little bit of time and define the different approaches. So whether you like that spiral, which means you have some constant practice of previously learned materials, or perhaps sequential, where we go chapter by chapter and focus on a specific skill or set of skills within that chapter. So those are things that you are going to want to think about as you're doing your research. If you are choosing a math curriculum new, then we ask that you please give your student a placement test. So almost all of the publishers have a placement test that's available on their website. And so you can go to that. Usually you have to print them out, have your student take that, and then you're going to need to turn that into your resource teacher. That way both you and she know where your student needs to be starting. And so you must do that if you are starting a new math program, or if you've decided to switch math programs. And the other thing I'll add is that if you are choosing teaching textbooks, we say that teaching textbooks is not Common Core aligned, and also that really the material is about a grade level below where the state standards are. So if you want to absolutely place your student in the book that they need, but just know that if you're doing teaching textbooks, you may want to take a look at areas that you may need to supplement to keep your student where they need to be with grade level standards. So this is the approved list for science. Again, this is where you're going to want to do your research, because some of these science curriculums, for instance, focus on science. You'll notice over here it says that you may need to order 2 or 3 topics per year. That's because these are this material isn't intended one book to last for the whole entire year, right? So you may want to order biology, chemistry, and physics for your student. Also know with Focus on Science, if you're doing your research there, that curriculum is written so that you could be doing the same topic with a younger and an older student. So if they have a elementary biology, they also have say a middle school biology. Some of the broad information is the same, but gets a little more detailed with the older students. So those kinds of things is what you'll want to include in your research. I'll also take a moment to note for you that the curriculum that we have on the shelves is listed on each one of these approved lists. That's because we believe that those curriculums in and of themselves are really great. And so if you're choosing to use whatever's on the VOCS grid, you don't need to put that on your special order. Your resource teacher will just check that out for you. So let's say you've decided to make a special order purchase just in the area of math, but everything else you're going to stick with grid materials, then you don't need to note that on your special order form. You'll just put math on your special order purchase. And we have many families who do that. So this is the approved list for social studies, and it has all of the programs that we offer. At this point, I will take a minute to talk about one of our curriculums. For instance, I'm going to talk about Moving Beyond the Page right here. So if you choose a curriculum, say Moving Beyond the Page or Bookshark, as you're researching those, you are going to want to look at all the pieces that you're going to need to make that curriculum complete. So both Moving Beyond the Page and Bookshark utilize novels. And so if you are choosing one of those, what you're going to do when you're making your order is do your research. So you're going to get the list of titles that you need in order to manage or do those units for the school year. Then you're going to go to our library, and you can access the library's website through our school website, and you're going to look up the titles of each of those books. And so if the title is already in our library, and let's say there's 5 or 10 copies of it, you don't need to put it on your special order list. You can just check it out when school starts. But let's say there's maybe only 1 copy in our library. You can go ahead and put it on your list and make a note for me that there's only 1 copy. That'll alert me that I need to be paying attention, that if multiple people are ordering the same unit that you are, I'll want to order some more copies of that book. And if we don't have the book at all in our library, as long as it is not religious in nature, then we can order that and have it available for you for checkout. But know that we're not going to just buy you automatically each one of those novels. We're first going to use the resources that we have that are already in our library and have you check those out first. And then if we need to get additional copies of books, we can do that. But that is your responsibility to go in and research which of those titles we may or may not have and to put those on your order. I'll also add that if you're using something like Moving Beyond the Page or Bookshark, they oftentimes in their teacher's edition will make references to supplemental materials that they use or they suggest. For instance, they may suggest Handwriting Without Tears, or they may suggest Easy Grammar. So you're going to want to, as you're doing your research, look at all the components that they suggest that you use, decide whether or not you want those pieces, and then include those on your special order. Because just because you choose Moving Beyond the Page doesn't mean that I know that you also want to include Handwriting Without Tears, because I'm going to make the assumption that you may not want to use Handwriting Without Tears. So that responsibility lies with you to do that research and make sure that you're including everything that you need on that initial purchase request. So that'll conclude video number 1. So next you'll need to click on the link for video number 2 so that we can continue going through the guidelines.